Please be seated. I would like to open this extraordinary council meeting on 21st of June 2022. Welcome to members of the public, press and those viewing this meeting online. I will now remind members of the housekeeping arrangements for the meeting. Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live and subsequent broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone follow these ground rules. If you wish to speak, please clearly raise your hand to indicate. Where there appears to be consensus in the meeting for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension. When a formal vote is required, this will be carried out by a show of hands unless a recorded vote is requested, which requires support from a quarter of the members present at the meeting. I would expect that any councillor wishing to raise a point of order should stand but remain silent. The councillors speaking at the time must stop and sit down. I will invite the councillor to make their point of order. A point of order shall relate only to an alleged breach of a procedure rule or statutory provision, and the councillor must specify the procedure rule or statutory provision and the way in which they consider it has been breached. As a matter of courtesy, can members indicate to me if they are leaving the meeting? I propose to have comfort breaks at 2-hour intervals as appropriate. This is indeed the longest day. In addition, I would request that you try and avoid leaving the meeting during debate. These are not formal adjournments and do not need to be voted upon. They are for health and comfort reasons. I would like to remind members of the Nolan Principles and the Code of Conduct, and I would expect that we treat each other with respect. In addition, I would like to highlight the need to avoid repetition during the debate. Agenda item 1, apologies. Chief Executive, will you please read out the apologies received for this extraordinary meeting?
Thank you, Chairman. Apologies have been received from Councillor Nigel Brooks, Councillor Mike Cox, Councillor Norman Decent, Councillor Brian Dion, Councillor LJ Evans, Councillor George Farquhar, Councillor Sean Gabriel, Councillor Nick Geary, Councillor Mike Green, Councillor Nicola Green, Councillor Chris Matthews and Councillor Felicity Rice, and I believe that Councillor Andy Hadley may be arriving late.
Thank you, Chief Executive. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Chief Executive, can you report on any declarations of interest received?
Thank you, Chairman. I've received none, but if any member is required to make any other declaration of interest, they should refer to the flow chart set out in the agenda for guidance.
Thank you. Agenda item 3, review of the political balance of the Council, the allocation of seats of committees to each political group, appointment of councillors to committees and appointments to outside bodies. I call on the Monitoring Officer to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, just briefly, I thought I would set out the legislative arrangements under which the political balance of the Council is agreed. It is under Section 15 of the Local Government and Housing Act 1989. Political balance must be achieved. It's a duty of the Council, and there are principles set out in that Act which govern how the political balance should be calculated and agreed. Political balance must first be achieved across the ordinary committees of Council, and thereafter the outside bodies, as we refer to them, but they're bodies defined in Schedule 1 of the Act, are taken into account so far as reasonably practicable. Where a proposal before the Council has achieved an allocation of seats in line with the principles and politically balanced, then it may be agreed by a majority of the councillors present and voting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. I now call upon Councillor Drew Mellor, who I understand will propose the recommendations in the report. Councillor Drew Mellor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you to the Monitoring Officer for that clarification. Chair, I appreciate you reminded us this is the longest day, but I'll still try and be relatively brief. This is a dry and technical paper. It's very much a numeric calculation. This actually, the way the numbers fell this time was particularly difficult because it was impossible in the existing format to balance at the boards and panels level, and we ended up being balanced at the outside bodies level, which is not optimum. So we put forward, we had an initial suggestion from Democratic. We then made some amendments and put that out for discussion over a week ago now. So we've been having some negotiations and openness on that. We had some feedback from that, particularly from, I believe it was a Labour group from that first iteration. And then so we've gone back to the drawing board and tried to appease those concerns, which I'm really pleased we're able to do. When I say we're able to do it, the solution was suggested by Democratic, and it was a very good one, so appreciate that. What we've come up with in that to make it balance on both sides, the borders and panels side and the outside body side, is to lower, the simplest way of doing it was to lower two of the seats. So what we've suggested was you can take a seat off of the Investigation and Disciplinary Committee, which hasn't met and isn't expected to meet, and then one other committee which we've suggested is licensing, where that main committee doesn't sit regularly. It's often the work done in subcommittees. Effectively, we've now got to a position through that period of negotiation where we've got a scenario that does one balance. It balances on both sides of the equation, and we're really pleased with that. What we've then done with that is what we've consistently done as a group, and it's, you shouldn't have to do this for often, but there's been a number of changes across the councillor group since we've been here since 2019, and every time we've looked at this, we've presented the Conservative seats, which we've and structure. We've made sure we're aware of what the unaligned seats are, presented that, and then said that we're very happy for the Unity Alliance or any other group that may be in existence to move make any amendments around of that. So the reason why the unaligned is so important, the unaligned can't be on a committee unless full council agree it, and so that's effectively why we try and make sure that they have absolute clarity alongside our group when we're presenting something, which I'm pleased to say we've got to. So effectively, Chair, I'm really happy that we've got to a balanced position that we can put forward despite the numbers being difficult, and I'm also happy that we managed to take the feedback from one of the opposition groups in particular and deliver to that. So, Chair, I won't carry on any further. We've got something that's balanced. I don't think many of us expected to be here or needed to be here for particularly long. So I will happily propose this, and I believe Councillor Broadhead will be seconding. Thank you, Chair.
Indeed. Thank you, Councillor Miller. Yes, I now call upon Councillor Phil Broadhead, who I understand wishes to second the recommendations in the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Happy to second, and will reserve my right to speak later, if necessary.
Thank you very much, Councillor Broadhead. So if I'd like to open it out to debate, please. Any councillors who wish to speak, please indicate. Councillor Dedman.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Well, we're talking about political balance, and I'm a bit baffled because we had a paper sent through on Friday which didn't seem too difficult to understand. And then suddenly we are confronted with somebody who I believe is now called a pool local, although I don't officially know that, in our place on the scrutiny committees. So we haven't got a seat on any scrutiny committee for Christchurch. Not only not the Christchurch Independents, but not Councillor Cox or Councillor Hall, who also represent Christchurch. So I feel very, very not content with this. The scrutiny function has been dumbed down anyway, and best practice demands that it should be independent. Well, it won't be very independent with a poor local who has just come over from being a Conservative. So am I to understand then, Chairman, from the leader, that, to put it crudely, Christchurch is being booted off any scrutiny for a former Conservative? So we have to say to our residents, oh, well, we can't scrutinise anything at the administration because they like to mark their own homework. So we don't know what's going on at BCP, and we don't know what's going to come to Christchurch. So, and I imagine really that there's plenty that you won't want the Christchurch Independents to scrutinise, plenty of plans, plenty of businesses. We know in Christchurch what the voters think of you and your administration. And now, if there was a shadow of doubt, I mean, now we've taken off scrutiny, you know, that's very plain. So I can assure you that any little bit of trust and faith our residents had in your administration will be shattered. And funnily enough, I was just looking today at a letter from one of your own administration, which likened this administration to Putin's Russia. So I'm a bit worried that we're being sent off to Siberia here. It feels like that. We're just being pushed to one side. And so I can't vote for this at all.
Thank you, Councillor Debman. Councillor Hilliard indicated, and there'll be Councillor Broadhead.
Thank you, Chair. It will be no surprise to the leader that Christchurch residents are not happy with having no representation from Christchurch councillors of any party on the key place and corporate and community overview and scrutiny committees. I propose, well, on Friday, the group leaders had a meeting with Democratic Services, and we were produce a chart which I thought when we left the meeting all groups were pretty content with. So I could propose an amendment that we go back to that structure if Democratic Services can circulate that from Fridays. I think probably everyone should have had it because all group leaders would have distributed it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hilliard. Councillor Broadhead.
Can't I second first? Chairman, I was just going to say that I would be happy to second.
Okay. Thank you. If you just wait 1 second. If I could just ask the monitoring officer to give us an overview of that particular suggestion and the paper that prompted him to say it.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Hilliard, if I'm correct, I understand that particular proposal didn't represent political balance in that it had a -1 against one of the parties. So I just wanted to bring to your attention that that amendment might need a unanimous, or will need a unanimous vote of the authority. Okay. Would you still like us to circulate and for you to propose that amendment?
Thank you. The amendment will be circulated. If you could all please wait. We have to deal with the amendment and send it out. Thank you. So my understanding is that that's now been circulated. Councillor Debman, you seconded that. Do you reserve your right to speak at this point?
Yes. I
Thank
nearly
you.
called you leader there, sorry. Yes, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, so I'd like to open the amendment to debate, please. Councillor Mellor.
Chair, thank you very much. As I believe I explained, part of the iteration of the process we've been on is the original piece of work didn't balance. We've heard from the Monitoring Officer that the current amendment that's now there doesn't balance and would therefore need the full support of the Council. I'm not prepared to support that, so this motion cannot pass because it would need unanimous support. So rather than waste time debating, I would suggest we now, and I do formally propose that the motion be now put.
Councillor Slade.
Thank you, Chair. I find it quite incredible that the Leader of the Council not only wants to take away scrutiny from opposition groups and, in fact, whole towns, but he now seeks to take away the right of us to even speak about the fact that we want scrutiny for our town. So the fact that he is not prepared to back it does not mean that the rest of us should not have a right to debate it. And I would respectfully ask, Chair, that you do not allow the motion now be put until people have had the opportunity to try to persuade him why what was agreed on Friday is worth considering. The fact that he is not prepared to consider it means that there's no point even being in the chamber if he's not prepared to debate. And bearing in mind he's not turned up to a group leaders meeting for at least 2 years, it is fairly obvious that he's never been prepared to debate with any of us.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. I was advised by the Chief Executive to call you at that point, but the amendment had already been...
It's up to you whether you want to consider it enough debate. Yeah, do you want Susan just to admit? Yeah.
Thank you. Can I hand over to Ms Syce to explain what I've just discussed with the Chief Executive? Thank you.
So, Chairman and Councillors, when there is a motion that the vote be put, it's up to the Chair's discretion as to whether or not he wishes to allow some debate or whether he wants the matter to go straight to the vote on whether or not the amendment should be allowed. So at this point, it's the Chairman's discretion as to whether or not he allows some debate or whether he goes straight to that vote. Chairman.
Thank you, Monitoring Officer. We've heard from Councillor Slade, so I now decide to move to the vote, please. So this is the vote for the motion be put. Can we do this by a show of hands?
Recorded vote, please.
25%?
25% want a recorded vote. Could you please indicate, please?
2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Yes, that's enough.
Thank you. Yes, that will be. There will be a recorded vote. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, so this is a vote on whether the motion be put. If you are in favour of Councillor Mellor's proposal, please vote for or against or abstain. Don't think we have Councillor Hazel Allen. No. Okay, so Councillor Lewis Allison.
Against.
Councillor Mark Anderson. For. Councillor Sarah Anderson. For. Councillor Marcus Andrews.
Against.
Councillor Judy Bagwell. Councillor Steve Barron.
For.
Councillor Stephen Bartlett.
Against.
Councillor John Beasley. Councillor Derek Borthwick. Councillor Philip Broadhead.
For.
Councillor Mike Brooke.
Against.
Councillor David Brown.
Against.
Councillor Simon Bull.
Against.
Councillor Richard Burton.
Against.
Councillor Diana Butler.
Against.
Councillor Daniel Butt.
For.
Councillor Judy Butt.
For.
Councillor Eddie Coop. Councillor Malcolm Davies. Councillor Leslie Dedman.
Against.
Councillor Bobby Dove. Councillor Beverley Dunlop. Councillor Millie Earle.
Against.
Councillor Jackie Edwards. Councillor Dwayne Farr.
For.
Councillor Lawrence Fear. Councillor Anne Filer. Councillor David Flagg. Thank you. Councillor Andy Hadley is not here yet. Sorry. Councillor May Haynes. Thank you. Councillor Peter Hall.
For.
Councillor Paul Hilliard.
Against.
Councillor Mark Howell. Councillor Mohan Iyengar. Councillor Gerald Johnson.
For.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
For.
Councillor Andy Jones. Councillor Jane Kelly. Councillor David Kelsey. Councillor Bob Lawton.
For.
Councillor Marion Lepedvin.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Lisa Lewis. Sorry, not here to apologise. Councillor Rachel Maidment. Councillor Simon McCormack.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Drew Mellor.
For.
Councillor Pete Miles. Councillor Sandra Moore. Councillor Lisa Northover. Councillor Susan Phillips.
For.
Councillor Margaret Phipps.
Against.
Councillor Karen Rampton. Councillor Vanessa Ricketts. Councillor Chris Rigby.
Against.
Councillor Mark Robson. Councillor Roberto Rocca. Councillor Vicky Slade.
Against.
Councillor Anne Stribley.
For.
Councillor Tony Trent.
Against.
Councillor Mike White. Councillor Lawrence Williams.
For.
Councillor Kieran Wilson.
Against.
Councillor Tony O'Neill.
For.
And Councillor Nigel Hedges.
For.
Thank you. How have you been doing? Got 35? Yes.
Thank you for your patience there, members. That was passed 35 to 26 to put the amendment to the vote. So this is the opportunity for Councillor Hilliard to speak and for Councillor Mellor to respond. And then we will move to the vote. Councillor Hilliard.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, it's disappointing, as I say, Christchurch residents aren't going to be represented in this current format, but I understand that my colleague, Councillor Allison, will be considering a further amendment which will hopefully keep all Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole residents happy and properly represented. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hilliard. And Councillor Mellor, you wish to?
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. We need something that balances. If this doesn't balance, let's move on.
We can now move to the vote on the amendment. Will we accept?
No, this has to be a unanimous vote if the amendment is to be passed.
Yeah. So this has to be a unanimous vote.
It has to fall.
So the amendment falls. Thank you. We now return to the substantive motion, and Councillor Broadhead has indicated he wishes to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Delighted to be back to the substantive, which is about agreeing a balanced budget, a balanced allocation to the committees, or better, as is required by the legislation. I think we need to correct some myths that have been put out by some of our members in this room, because if a resident was watching this, they would be under the absolute mistaken and incorrect impression that a town is being banned from scrutiny. That is absolutely not the case, because the Conservative group have agreed where we would like our different allocations to present balanced committees from our side. But if we're just talking about the place and the corporate and community overview and scrutiny functions, which is what my colleagues are discussing, there are actually 10 non-Conservative seats available within those committees that could easily be attributed to anybody, any town, the Christchurch Independent Party, if it was so required. And the leader and I have just been talking, and as he attested to at the beginning, we are absolutely open for any amendments that come forward that play with what the other parties, where they would like to sit. So rather than trying to portray this as the Conservatives banning Christchurch from being on the committees, it is absolutely within the gift of all of the other parties to decide where they would like to sit. I personally would welcome an amendment that came forward that didn't change the allocation of the unaligned or the Conservatives, but did give a voice to whichever party wanted to be anywhere. I'd suggest that with the leadership of Vicky Slade as normally the leader of the Unity Alliance, it would be in her gift to use any of those 10 spaces to give what Councillor Edmund and Councillor Hilliard so clearly want. We've got our allocation. I think it's absolutely right that we present a balanced committee here, and it's absolutely right that the Conservative group decide where we want our seats, and it's now up to all of our other colleagues or other parties to decide where they would want their seats. Christchurch are more than welcome at scrutiny. It's really for you to decide whether you want to be there or not. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Councillor Slade, you indicated, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to clarify again for the public record that you are quite right. There are 10 seats available to non-administration members, but it seems rather odd that the smaller groups, the Liberal Democrat group is the second largest group, and therefore we have seats on both of those committees, but all of the other groups have a seat on one or other of the two scrutiny groups that actually follow the policies of the council, i.e. the place, overview and scrutiny, and the corporate and community. The replacement for the previous overview and scrutiny board, which had representation from every group, including the unaligned, and was one of the main reasons that we were very keen to retain it, and in fact won a vote in this very chamber before the disgraceful behaviour of the leader that caused the meeting to be adjourned. The situation is that, for the public who probably do not understand this, is that in order for the Christchurch Independents to be able to have representation on one of those two groups, they're not asking for both, they're asking for representation on one. One of the other smaller groups would have to give up their allocation from the only one of those that they have. The only non-Conservative group that has seats on two, that has a small number of councillors, is the Newport local group, who we asked politely if they would give up one of their seats so that all of the smaller groups have a seat on one. They declined. It is not appropriate for the 4 committees that deal with scrutinising the council, the Health and the Children's Committee, and the Place Committee and the Corporate Community. It is not appropriate for all 4 of those committees to have a Conservative majority when the Conservatives do not have a majority on this council. At the end of the day, yes, we can share the sweets out amongst ourselves, but to give to the Christchurch Independents would mean taking away from another group. That's not fair. The one group who has all the big sweets is the Conservatives, and they are showing that they don't respect scrutiny by wanting to keep it to themselves.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. BC's indicated that Councillor Lawrence Fear wishes to.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd just like to clarify something. We do have 4 overview and scrutiny bodies. Just let the former leader of the council know this, just so she can brief on Twitter that we do have 4. It's a bit of a sad situation, this. We're here this evening on this motion, on this one item that we have always passed, normally because it is a process point to do, because it is balance. The former leader of the council said that the new group, it was in their gift to step off and help them out. No, they have no obligation to do that, Mr. Chairman, no obligation at all. And then looking at the Christchurch Independence side, it just sounds like the Christchurch Independence Party aren't standing up for the residents of Christchurch, quite frankly, because they're not giving enough gusto to the leader of the Liberal Democrats to say, no, we demand these seats on these panels. Yeah, we'll work with you and we'll swap it around. It's the allocation on the percentage of the seats that we have. It is numbers, it is written right in front of us. So if they're not going to bother standing up for their residents and get proper allocations, then maybe they should vote Conservatives next year and get some proper representation in. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fear. Councillor McCormick, please.
Just in response to that, Chair, the reason the Christchurch Independence was formed was because the Conservative Party screwed over Christchurch and sent them into this council in the first place. So,
could I just make a note about the language, Councillor McCormack? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Trent.
Thank you, Chair. The one thing I find is really ridiculous about this is that the only group, other than the one larger group, that has a place on all of these committees is the one group which is basically taking the whip of the Conservative group. So to me it just seems like a stitch-up, and it's a stitch-up against democracy. It's worth reminding people that more than 2/3 of the people of Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole rejected Conservatives in 2019, but you've actually got a situation where the Conservatives are manipulating things to run the show. And I think it's absolutely atrocious, and it just really shows how seedy this whole situation is.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. If I could ask for members not to jeer and make noises while other councillors are speaking, I would greatly appreciate that. There were several hands indicating. Councillor Iyengar, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I think we've already, our first council meeting as a new group, and we're already in footlights. A few things mentioned already, sadly, which are just absolutely incorrect. The fact that Christchurch aren't on any ONS committees just isn't true. The last time I looked, children's and adults and social care could not be more important as scrutiny committees, I'd suggest to us. There seem to be favourites in the committees. Clearly, place and community and corporate are the favourite two, and there's some people peeved that they're not on those two committees. The word tough comes to mind, I have to say, okay, because all 4 committees are important, as are all the others. The comment made, which is a group that has taken the whip, apparently, absolute conjecture, completely. Any facts to base that on whatsoever, okay? Let me refute that. None has been taken whatsoever. There you go, there's a conjecture from me. None has been taken whatsoever from this, okay? We are on all the scrutiny committees. No, we're not. We're not on HSC. We're not on Adults, Health and Social Care, okay? So can we just get some facts straight about this situation, please? The first speaker did say that actually they're not on any of them. I think I've put that right as well. I think there's something in this overall solution, I'll finish now, I think I've made my points, is that The solution is politically balanced. You either believe from people like me and the group of 5 of us that we're going to make points and be animated and be vocal when it's worth it, and we're going to just sort of get on with business when it's important to do so as well, and not fuss about little details when we haven't quite got what we want. Okay? And I suggest we do that, please. Kindly don't laugh, Councillor Dedman. Okay? You will, absolutely. Okay, I've named you, yes. All right?
Councillor Angar, could you
because I
please
think
not-
that's the realm we're in.
Please not name other members, thank you. Councillor Anderson, I think you indicated, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's useful to note that when the Unity Alliance first put forward their amendment, the councillor who put the amendment doesn't seem to understand that councillors are supposed to be abreast of everything that's going on and not just what's going on in the scrutiny. So maybe she doesn't care for the Christchurch residents herself because they're not interested in learning what's happening. But I also would like to say that I think Councillor Slade should show some leadership to the Unity Alliance by offering her seat on the PACE committee to the Christchurch Independent Group. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Angar. Councillor Hilliard, please.
Thank you, Chair. The Conservatives...
Your indulgence for a moment, Councillor Hilliard, thank you. Councillor Hilliard, please.
Thank you. The Conservatives do not have the majority on Children's Services Committee, so please show some consistency and give up the majority on the corporate and community. So what I'm proposing an amendment is that Christchurch Independents give up our seat on licensing and in exchange for the Conservative seat on corporate, one of the seats out of the 6 on corporate and community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hilliard. Do you have a seconder? Councillor, both hands. Yes. Councillor Phipps, yes? So Councillor Phipps has seconded. We're working through the figures at this point. As I say, members, this is a situation where we have amendments, but actually we're seeking for balance. So at this point, on reflection of the numbers, there is a basis for a new amendment.
We'll circulate it by email.
The numbers for the amendment, proposed amendment, will be circulated electronically, thank you. That's now been circulated electronically. The monitoring officer will now give a degree of explanation. Thank you.
Members, sorry, thank you. Richard Jones has just mentioned to me that the cells where there have been changes are highlighted in red. It might make it easier for you to see where the amendments have been made. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we're opening the debate for the amendment, and Councillor Broadhead has indicated he wishes to speak.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Happy to speak again. At least we actually have a proposal this time which is politically balanced. However, I'd like to make a comment that could save us an awful lot of time this evening. As the leader has pointed out earlier, we have presented a balanced budget with the allocation. Oh, for crying out loud, Philip. We have presented a balanced committee seat allocation. It doesn't roll off the tongue as well, Mr. Chairman, which the Conservatives in our seat allocation are completely happy with. We are by far the way the largest group. It takes an awful lot of time to make sure that our own members are happy with where they are, and therefore, as I'd said earlier, we are absolutely happy to entertain absolutely any amendments that come forward that do not change the Conservative allocation, because that is very much can and should be within our gift. I would delicately point out, Mr. Chairman, there are 7 political parties in BCP Council. There are 6 other parties for which you can play about with the allocation, and more than happy to consider that. But if we keep bringing successive amendments forward that try to change the Conservative allocation, I can say right now we're not going to agree to that. We've made our decision on where we want ours to present a balanced committee allocation system. However, we will not be agreeing to a system that changes that. 6 other parties, by all means, between yourselves, come up with where you would like your seats in your other areas, but the Conservatives will not be changing their position. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Broadhead. Councillor Bagwell, I understand you indicated. No, I just want to make sure we've got the approval, sir. Thank you, Chair. Thank you. Any other members like to comment, please? No. So the mover of the amendment gets a chance to speak, please, and followed up by Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, we've heard the debate, the reasons why the smaller parties haven't got anywhere to go. We've got no negotiation. But Conservatives have majority on the place, the community, corporate and community, and all we're saying is just give up 1 seat if you want to have true, open, transparent dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hilliard. Councillor Miller.
Thank you. I will, Chair, actually. And in terms of giving up 1 seat, if we roll back to literally just a month ago when we actually did have the majorities in all the committees, and we actually, by definition of the rules, we had to take the majority in each committee. Do we, of all the 4 scrutiny chairs, do we control all of those? No, we don't. And have we, since we've been in administration? Absolutely not, because we've given one of the chairs we've supported in Children's, a Unity Alliance candidate, to chair one of the overview and scrutiny committees. My colleague's been absolutely clear on 2 things. We have delivered a balanced budget, and we are now delivering a balanced, whatever the other thing was. So thank you very much, but we've been clear. There are 102 seats in this proposal. We've got 49 of them. There are 53 for you to agree amongst yourselves. We're really clear. We've made sure the unaligned have got seats, and other than that, Chair, we're very happy to move forward. Thank you.
Councillor Ricketts, please. It's a point of order, Councillor Ricketts.
No.
Okay. We'll move to the vote. Councillor Brooks has requested a recorded vote.
So do we have 25% support for a recorded vote?
Yeah. Yeah, so we go to recorded vote.
Okay, thank you, councillors. So this is a vote on the amendment that was proposed to move one Conservative, sorry, a Christchurch Independent seat to the Licensing Committee and one from the Corporate Overview and Scrutiny from the Conservatives to Christchurch Independents. So if you're in favour of that change, please vote for. If you are against it, please vote against. If not, the alternative is to abstain. I don't think we've got Councillor Allen. Councillor Lewis Allison. For. Councillor Mark Anderson.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Anderson. Yes. Councillor Marcus Andrews.
For.
Councillor Julie Bagwell.
Against.
Councillor Steve Barron.
Against.
Councillor Stephen Bartlett.
Abstain.
Councillor John Beasley. Councillor Derek Borthwick. Councillor Philip Broadhead.
Against.
Councillor Mike Brooke.
For.
Councillor David Brown.
For.
Councillor Simon Bull.
For.
Councillor Richard Burton.
For.
Councillor Diana Butler.
For.
Councillor Daniel Butt.
Against.
Councillor Judy Butt.
Against.
Councillor Eddie Coop. Councillor Malcolm Davies. Councillor Leslie Dedman.
For.
Councillor Bobby Dove. Councillor Beverley Dunlop. Councillor Millie Earle.
For.
Councillor Jackie Edwards. Councillor Dwayne Farr.
Against.
Councillor Lawrence Fear.
Against.
Councillor Anne Filer. Councillor David Flagg. Thank you. Councillor Andy Hadley, not here. Councillor May Haynes. Thank you. Councillor Peter Hall. Councillor Paul Hilliard.
For.
Councillor Mark Howell. Councillor Mohan Iyengar. Councillor Cheryl Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Andy Jones. Councillor Jane Kelly. Councillor David Kelsey. Councillor Bob Lawton. Councillor Marion Lepedvin.
For.
Councillor Lisa Lewis, not here. Councillor Rachel Maidment. Councillor Simon McCormack.
For.
Councillor Drew Mellor.
Against.
Councillor Pete Miles. Councillor Sandra Moore. Councillor Lisa Northover. Councillor Susan Phillips. Councillor Margaret Phipps. Councillor Karen Rampton. Councillor Vanessa Ricketts. Councillor Chris Rigby.
For.
Councillor Mark Robson. Councillor Roberto Rocca. Councillor Vicky Slade.
For.
Councillor Anne Stribley.
Against.
Councillor Tony Trent.
For.
Councillor Mike White. Councillor Lawrence Williams. Councillor Kieran Wilson, sorry. Okay, Councillor Tony O'Neill.
Against.
And Councillor Nigel Hedges.
Against. So the amendment has lost 25 for and 34 against. Thank you. We return to the substantive motion. Anybody like to contribute and continue the debate? Councillor Ricketts, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I note the leader said that previously they had the majority on all the committees, and this obviously was true, but now the balance has changed, and as the leader rightly said, they now have 49 seats. How come then on standards there are 4 Conservative seats still to the 3 UA seats, or unaligned seats? That doesn't actually sound very balanced to me. It's almost a case of being judge and jury.
Thank you, Councillor Ricketts. Any members feel they need to contribute? Councillor Judy Butt.
Yeah, with regard to standards, as far as I remember it, it's always been 4. There's been a change, and I'm thinking of the 4 that there were. That was myself, Councillor Daniel Butt, Councillor Derek Borthwick, and who was the 4th? There were definitely 4 Conservatives. Lawrence Williams, was it Lawrence? You're not on standards. Well, there were definitely 4 Conservatives, so that's always been. There's 7, I think, on standards, and there were 4 Conservatives, so I don't think that ratio's changed. But I stand corrected if it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butt. If no more members are indicating they wish to contribute, then I shall...
Could you raise your hand so it's clear? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. I forwarded an amendment to Democratic Services, which is a different proposal to the one that's on the table.
Can I call you Councillor Allison?
Yeah.
You wish to speak, yes?
Yes.
Please.
Yes, I'd like to put forward a different amendment. I forwarded it to Democratic Services and to the Chief Executive.
Sorry, I can't get that.
I'm speaking right. Can you not hear the microphone? I'll be worse, surely.
You have another amendment?
I have another amendment which I've forwarded to Democratic Services.
Okay, thank you. Got it. Thank you. Thank you. I wait. And can we see who the seconder is, please, for Councillor Allison's amendment? Councillor Slade, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Councillor Allison. This is now going to be circulated in quick time. Thank you. We wait for the electronic magic to work, Mr. Jones. No pressure. Thank you, Councillor Allison. Just the spreadsheet will be circulated. Okay, members, apparently the spreadsheet has just arrived. You can see it on your laptops now. Councillor Allison, now the spreadsheet's been circulated, could you explain the nuances that you've introduced?
You guys are going to love this, right? So we found a way which is not only politically balanced, but also allows every single group to have a space on all of the ONS committees. And that is by increasing the committee sizes of the ONS committee panels from 11 each to 15 each. And that means that there's now 119 spaces, and that means that the Conservative group are not missing any seats. In fact, they gain, I think, 8 committee seats across the board. And it also means that every single political group has got a space on corporate and community ONS and on place and overview ONS. And all but 2 don't have space on the other 2.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. I hope all members got that and that aided clarity there. Councillor Stribley.
Yes, Chairman, if I could just comment, it's almost impossible to hear what a lot of members in this chamber say because they're speaking to the microphone, which is only inches away from them, and not to the back wall of the chamber. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard, but you do have to speak clearly. I'm afraid for most people sitting slightly in front, they are totally unintelligible. Some across the chamber also, and it's just a question of practice, speak up and shut up. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stribley. I didn't quite hear that. I didn't quite hear that last phrase, but if it
Chairman,
was the word
Philip.
shut up, I would feel that could potentially be inappropriate. But thank you for your positive suggestions, Councillor Stribley.
Sorry, Chairman, I was just quoting Prince Philip. That was his advice.
Well, thank you. So this is where I have the opportunity to ask for any debate on the amendment, please. Councillor Hilliard.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we're fully supportive of it. Well, I'm fully supportive of this, and I think that this is what the leader, my deputy leader, have been talking about, that all parties can have a representation on the key committees, the overview, all 4 overview and scrutiny committees. So, yes, I hope that everyone will support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hilliard. Councillor Dedman.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairman. Yes, I think it's a very good plan and I support it.
Thank you, Councillor Dedman. Councillor Mellor, I think you indicated next.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank Councillor Ellison for his amendment, and I hope he's glad with the thing we've got in front of us as the original substantive took forward some of the concerns he's raised. Chair, we had, I believe it was the last council meeting, there were 3 council meetings on that night, so I apologise if I got this wrong, but where we, literally one of the last meetings we had, where we had a significant process through audit and governance and a number of other pieces, where we got to 11 being 4 overview and scrutiny committees, 11 people on them being the right answer. This council has literally just agreed to do that. Chair, I see absolutely no reason to overturn that. So I restate my original point. The simplest way of balancing this was to losing 2, not adding a significant number that this adds. We are content with our allocation. We're content with the Underlines allocation. If the Unity Alliance would like to change some of their seats, they're very welcome to. But you're not doing that, are you? Because you're effectively just trying to, waste everybody's time. So we are not going to be supporting this amendment, but I look forward to an amendment that, as I have said, and my deputy leader has also said, just looks at the seats and the allocation from you, which is what we've done every other time we've debated this. Thank you.
Councillor Phipps, you indicated.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Well, I'm quite surprised by what I've just heard. This is a very fair proposal, very fair indeed. Everybody gets a really good slice of the cake. Everybody gets representation on a committee. What is the problem here? Obviously, the problem is the Conservatives don't like it for some reason. What is going on? So I'm very, very supportive of this. It just seems to me, from what I've just heard, that the administration is somehow perpetrating some political balance fraud. What is the problem with Christchurch independents having a seat on each of those scrutiny committees? Why? Here is a proposal which is good for everybody. What is the problem? And it's going to be very, very interesting, I think, to see how our new pool local actually vote on this one, because I have some suspicions that actually they're not very pool local, but they are still actually Conservatives. So that's my thoughts on it, and I fully support what this proposal that has
Thank you, Councillor Phipps. Councillor Phipps, could I just clarify, did you use the word fraud? Could I possibly give you the opportunity, could I perhaps give you the opportunity to withdraw that, please? If you'd be so kind, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, you can. I said political balance fraud. That was the words that I used. If you wish me to remove the word fraud, because apparently I have to, then I will.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much for that, Councillor Phipps. Had a number of hands indicated. Did Councillor Howell indicate first, or Councillor Broadhead? Councillor Broadhead, please.
Thank you very much. I'll try and keep my language gentlemanly rather than resort to accusations and name calling as what we're seeing, which is, I think, what we're all supposed to be here to be doing, isn't it? Aren't we all grown-ups? Mr. Chairman, this political balance proposal, as the leader has said, is balanced, granted, but completely negates the spirit of the audit and governance discussion and vote at the last council by just adding loads more seats onto many different things. So, as the leader has said, I don't think that the solution here, there's a much cleaner solution, which is for the other 6 political parties to actually decide where they would like the seats. So that's one point I would make. The second point, to reiterate the point that I made before, it has taken a long time for the Conservative group to arrange where we would like all of our seats, and this proposal isn't just adding a few members here or there, it's adding significant new Conservative, added more Conservative members onto planning, 2 more Conservative members onto licensing, and more Conservative members onto the scrutiny panels, and that's a tremendous amount of work for us to do this evening for something which is easily resolved by members across the chamber, just actually agreeing something between themselves. Final point from me, as to Councillor Councillor Phipps's point around what the pool local party would think. The other point of this proposal is not just adding seats here or there, it's actually removing 2 seats from the pool local party from licensing, which from what I understand from the pool local members is quite important to them, and it would leave no representation whatsoever for the pool local party on licensing. It goes from 2 down to 0 under licensing. So not only is it trying to resolve a problem rather than tackling it head on by actually working out the maths themselves and adding loads of people onto committees, which negates the previous discussion, but actually it takes representation away from one of the political parties in an area which I know they were very keen to be involved with. So for all of those reasons, I would go back to the original proposal and spirit of what we'd said. We have a balanced proposal from the Conservatives of our seats. If you've got other things within the seats that you want to do on your side, by all means, let's have a healthy discussion. But this is not the solution that presents itself. Thank you.
Councillor Broadhead. Councillor Bagwell, I think you indicated next.
Thank you, Chair. I work for my residents. You may not realise that, but I do. You know, whatever my residents want is what I do. So everybody on this side can actually look at me like I'm a Conservative, never been, never gonna. But if they come up with a better idea than you lot, then I'm going to vote for it. Okay, so don't call me anything that you can't prove, and I'm not one.
Thank you, Councillor Bagwell. Councillor Howell, please.
Thank you. Just to address that last point, you were elected, Councillor Bagwell, on an anti-Conservative ticket, and ever since
No,
you have...
independent, Mush. Independent.
You're voting,
you don't get a whip if you're a poor people person.
Excuse me.
Councillor Howell, could you please make the point?
I'm adjusting a point here.
I seem to feel you seem to be trying to abuse Councillor Bagwell.
No, I was saying that...
You were slagging me off, Mush.
A fact, she was elected with literature which was clearly anti-Conservative, and she has voted with the Conservatives consistently.
Thank you very much for your contribution, Councillor Howell. Thank you very much.
So the point I'd like to make more readily is I really understand why the leader is so peeved by this, because the Poole Conservative Party has dumped him in it by forcing the Poole local representatives to leave the Conservative Party, and therefore he's still...
I'm sorry, Councillor Howell. This is part of the debate on the amendment, Councillor Howell.
Yeah,
Could you make a pertinent point?
The point here is that the use of the word fraud was valid in the sense there is a deception going on here, because if you look at the echo that the leader...
Councillor Howell, please.
The leader is quoted in the The leader is...
Howell, please.
No, will you just shut up, for God's sake?
I will not accept that language, Councillor Howell. I would at this point politely ask you to sit down.
No, I'm not going to sit down because I've just had constant heckling.
Point of order.
From Councillor Butt, who consistently in every committee talks over everybody else.
Point of order,
Chair. I've had not
Leader of the Council
to speak without somebody else speaking.
Councillor Howell, thank you. Would you please take your seat, Councillor Howell? I would request you politely to take your seat.
Will I be allowed to speak for my 3 minutes?
I don't think so at the moment, no.
Well, I'm
please.
going to sit down.
The Leader of the Council is raising a point of order. I would like you to sit down and hear the point of order, please, Councillor Howell. Thank you. Appreciate that. Councillor Miller.
Thank you very much, Chair. That was an appalling scene. The point of order I'd like to suggest, the Councillor just told another member
Sorry,
to
he's
shut
supposed to quote a number for a point of order. There's no number being quoted, no reference in the... What is the reference in the Constitution?
Well, he's got to sit down. I would ask this council chamber to consider that member be removed.
He's not produced the reference. He constantly asks people to produce it.
And I believe I have a seconder.
From the floor, it's been proposed that Councillor Howell be removed from the chamber.
Please, may I speak?
We're just checking the constitutional process.
Chair, can I just clarify that whenever we put forward points of order, we have been required to state what the point of order is in the Constitution. That can't go forward as a point unless he actually comes up with it. And you shouldn't be doing it for him, sir.
No, indeed.
You should be asking him to actually tell us what his point of order is.
Thank you, Councillor Slade. Obviously, the number has been changed in the Constitution when it was rewritten recently. It was 23-1-3. No, I'm telling you what it used to be. It isn't that now. I'm not telling you.
Chair, I believe it's in the updated Constitution, it's 24.2. Thank you.
Yeah, it is section 24(1) that a councillor be no further heard. 24(2) by the chair under procedure rule 24(2) that a councillor leaves the meeting. At this point, Councillor Howell, I'm minded to keep you in the chamber. If you would wish to contribute further, I would appreciate it. But at this point, I feel that after that particular issue there of language and behaviour and refusal to stop speaking when requested several times to do so, I think if you remained your seat, then we would appreciate your further measured contributions later in the debate. Would you be agreeable to that?
What I would say is that immediately I started speaking, there were people here who were trying to stop me speaking, and you did nothing to stop that. You gave me no opportunity to speak so that people could hear me without other people interrupting. And I deserve that 3 minutes under the Constitution. It's my right to speak, and you appear to be denying me that by trying to chuck me out of the chamber. So I can't let that happen. You know, I have a right to speak for 3 minutes without being interrupted. You know, if I've said something that is, you know, libelous against the law, you know, there are means for that to be, you know, taken forward outside this chamber. I have 3 minutes that I'm entitled to. So, no, I'm just not having that.
I'm sorry, it's on the clock here, Councillor Howell.
No, that was a debate about whether I could speak. Clearly, you had not permitted me to speak.
Can I give you this last opportunity to sit down and reflect, Councillor Howell, because I would really like to hear more from you later on.
I can stand up and reflect quite easily, and I've done that, and I want my 3 minutes to speak.
Councillor Howell, I'm afraid you're pushing me into a corner which I won't be able to get out of. Would you please take your seat? I would politely ask you to take your seat. If you refuse to do so, then I'm afraid I must invoke...
Chair, if I may, because...
Not at the moment, Councillor Field.
Under procedure...
Oh, sorry, is it in relation to...
It is, Chair. Under Procedure Rule 14, 34.136, it would be, I think, in the best interest of democracy and the process of this meeting if the member should be asked to leave. Thank you.
Councillor Howell, you sat down. Is that... I appreciate you sitting down. Thank you.
Yeah, as you said, Alex...
Your points have been made. I would really like to keep you in the chamber for you to contribute more pertinent observations, if you would agree to do so. Thank you. Councillor Butt, Jude Butt.
I'm afraid, Mr Chairman, I disagree with you wholeheartedly. I do not wish to keep somebody who behaves in such an offensive way, has caused my colleague to have to leave the room because she's so upset by his outrageous attack, personal attack on an individual. He did not speak to the amendment. That is what we are here for. We are not here to abuse. And this individual has abused my colleague and she's had to leave the chamber, and I think that's absolutely unforgivable. And I think that your ability to be able to ask Councillor Howell to stay in the chamber, I'm sorry, Mr Chairman, but I believe you to be wrong, and I believe that Councillor Howell should leave the chamber because he's upsetting the debate, he's upsetting the evening, and he's certainly upsetting me. Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Jude Butt. Councillor Bagwell, you've rejoined us.
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Councillor Butt, I recognise your heartfelt and emotional appeal there, and I appreciate it. At this point, I feel we need to move on with the debate. So please...
Thank you for your consideration, Mr Chairman. I'm grateful.
It is a difficult role here, but I do feel that when people are emotional, I try to keep order. Sometimes I have to bang the gavel. I'm very pleased that Councillor Howell is sitting down. How Councillor Howell and Councillor Bagwell make amends after the meeting, I would be pleased to know. But at this point, I would appreciate it if we could now move on with the debate. Councillor Brown, I think you indicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and get the discussion back to the amendment and what's before us. I would like to say that I'm surprised by the intransigence and the refusal to listen to any other sort of points by the minority Conservative administration on this council, but I'm really not surprised after the previous council meetings that they're just not willing to listen to reason or to reasoned arguments. I am surprised, Chair, that you allowed the First Amendment to go to the vote without any adequate debate, which sadly shows the attitude of this minority administration to the residents of Christchurch and their elected representatives, and fulfills the fears, the worst fears of Christchurch residents about the formation of BCP. I held a unique position prior to the formation of BCP Council as the single opposition member on the shadow committee with 15 Conservative members in the room as well as me, which debated the formation of BCP and how it would be done and the bringing together of these three towns. This proposal by Councillor Allison, for me, certainly fulfills the spirit of the discussions that we had at that shadow committee, in that all parties and all areas of the conurbation have a voice across all aspects of the council's operations. And that's why I'd like to support Councillor Allison's proposal, because it fulfills the ambitions, certainly of that shadow committee and the discussions prior to BCP being formed. If we don't go with this and allow all parties and all areas of the council to be represented across all committees, that, for me, undermines the whole ethos of what BCP Council was about right from the start, and
fulfills the worst fears of Christchurch residents, and I'd like to support them in the fact that they didn't want to come into BCP Council. I think we're seeing BCP Council become a laughingstock in many parts of the town because of the behaviour of this minority administration.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Johnson, you indicated next.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'm a little confused, Chairman. We've had 3 amendments, and I'm not entirely sure which one the Unity Alliance, I should say, would actually have wanted. If the first one went through, why is this third one suddenly so important and so roundly supported? Which one would you actually have wanted if all 3 had been on the table in the first place? The numbers are the numbers. You would, and did, have used them in exactly the same way when you were the administration, as was your gift, and is also ours. There is no deception. The formulas, the numbers, the calculations are all in front of you and have been from the very start. It's simple mathematics used within our gift to gain something that impartial officers have decided is balanced. To claim otherwise is to smear our officers and is utterly unacceptable and unprofessional. To the point saying we're not listening. We do listen, we just don't agree. We listen and will continue to listen, and if you come up with any brilliant ideas, I have absolutely no doubt that this administration will listen and will take them on board. But quite frankly, we don't believe that this amendment has the necessary quality or common sense to be worthy of support. So please, by all means, vote against the substantive and complain to your heart's content for the next few months. But quite frankly, we have the numbers, it's within our gift, and we look forward to passing a balanced political balance. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Johnson. Councillor Trent, please.
Thank you, Chair. In a while, I'm actually going to do something I don't think I've ever done in my life. I'm going to quote Margaret Thatcher. But that is for a few moments' time. I think when balance doesn't work out, and I don't think this actually works out apart from in a very crude way, because effectively what you've got is 48-point-something% of the seat entitlement becomes 54+% of the seats. In actuality, in some committees, particularly the ones with the strongest scrutiny function. And so I think the idea of increasing the numbers and actually making it more balanced is a good one. It's been done in the past and it can be done again. And now for the Margaret Thatcher quote, I think when it comes to democracy and accountability, I think the members opposite, and some of them are going to have to look this up in a book because it's a long time ago, are afraid.
Thank you, Councillor Trent. Councillor Iyengar, you indicate, and then Councillor Slade.
Yes, thank you. I'm speaking hopefully on the business, but I need to refer to a couple of general points that were just made earlier. Just about the new pool local group that came out in the course of this amendment. It does seem that sort of tonight is a night where it's sort of kind of the roughing up of the newbies sort of thing, which I absolutely accept this sort of thing has to be carried out. I do understand that, and I suspect it's not just going to be tonight where this sort of thing happens as well. Well, most emphatically, we're up for it, I've got to say, so bring it on. It's the quality of the argument that counts. I can say that, it's easy to say, and I suppose really, you know, we'll find this as we go forward. I feel absolutely no need, I've got to say, to prove that we are not Conservatives by leaping immediately to the opposition view. That's not in my mind how it works at all, okay? And I don't imagine that's a surprise to anybody here, okay? The quality of the argument will be what's count. Just on the amendment itself, I do have to say, now in reference to a comment that was made earlier, I think by Councillor Johnson, just is that there's now been 3 amendments and we've had 2 leaders' meetings where, with respect, I mean, these could have come up. I know you didn't know that the previous ones were going to get rejected, but okay, this is the 3rd amendment now, and we're doing it, as I said in the leaders' meeting, I hope we wouldn't do, which is debating it now among the 76 councillors, which is probably the least functional way of doing this kind of discussion. I'm in favour of good government, totally, okay? I'm not totally won over to the idea of expanding the committees because what's not been given any weight in that consideration is now how workable that all is, with absences, with attendance and so on. But on the other hand, okay, people feel strongly enough about it. And I have to say, I feel very, very cold about the idea about Place and C&C being the favoured committees at the expense of health and children's. I've got to say that does feel, that feels awful to me. I would like to put on record. But anyway, so be it. And I think, okay, then if people feel strongly about this, well, okay then, fine. All right, thank you. Councillor Iyengar. Councillor Slade, please.
Thank you, Chair. I really appreciate the words of Councillor Iyengar there, and I just want to reflect a couple of the points that he's actually made and compare it to a couple of things that the Deputy Leader said. I totally understand the point about the quality of the argument, Councillor Iyengar, and I think that the difficulty is that when we were first faced with a change of political balance, we were told very clearly, and I don't believe you were at the first meeting because your group hadn't been formed at the first of those 3 group leaders meetings that we had. We were told that there were 2 ways of doing this. We could either go down or we could go up, and that it was easier to go down because the change was smaller. And that is why, when the numbers were going down, we were looking at amendments that took it down. So that is why this wasn't something which 2 weeks ago we were proactively looking at. But we were told it was completely legitimate for the numbers to go up. The audit and governance discussion, which the Deputy Leader referenced earlier, was not about reducing the number of seats. It was about reducing the amount of officer time that was required to administer the work of the committees, because more and more meetings were being held, and it was about trying to reduce that. So I never heard anything that said there needed to be fewer councillors on the seats. There needed to be fewer meetings. In terms of the number of people and the number more members needing to work, yes, it does mean we've got to work a bit harder. But it means there's 15 people on each of the 4 scrutiny committees, all 4 equal, which is what that option 2 and option 2A, I think it was seeking to do. Harmonise all 4 committees, make them equally valuable. Whether you go down to 11 or up to 15, it does the same. Now, I don't wish to cast any aspersions, and I'm certainly not casting any aspersions on you, Councillor Iyengar. But I do wonder if one way of being able to make sure that there were enough Conservative members, and I say Conservative members, not non-Conservative members, one reason why they might not want to have an additional 8 or 9 members on committees is because there are too many people in the administration. And actually, if there were fewer people in the administration, there would be more people who could work on the back benches. The final point I want to make is this. I wonder whether there is something more afoot. I wonder what, if the Paul 4 or the Bournemouth 2, these mythical people I keep hearing about, decide to exit the Conservative group, what's left? And maybe that's why the Conservative administration are so determined to go down in numbers. You lose nothing at all by this. Your backbenchers need to work a bit harder. Our backbenchers, our opposition needs to work harder. But we're up for that.
So 3
because
minutes.
you told us...
3 minutes.
Can I just finish my sentence?
Yes, indeed, please.
You told us that you wanted more councillors to be involved. And this allows more of us to be involved by more of us having seats on committees.
Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you, Chair. In regards to the importance of the various overview and scrutiny committees, the Children's and Adults committees are, of course, as important as any other committee, but their focus is a little narrower. They're more specialised, whereas the Place and the Corporate Services overview and scrutiny committees have got a much broader remit, and they track much more the cabinet decisions. The scope is huge for both, even though it's been split. The scope is still huge, and the quantum of work going through the overview and scrutiny committees go through those too. Now, I don't see anything wrong at all with getting anybody that wants to make comment in those meetings, and the thought of Christchurch not having a seat, on those two committees, to me, is absurd. They're a major part of the conurbation, and they should be afforded a seat on the place and the corporate boards. So, in this proposal, the balance is there. The Conservatives still hold the majority of seats for their particular group, which is a requirement. So this meets the legal requirements. It affords everybody the opportunity to speak at overview and scrutiny, should they need to. But there's just one last point, which escapes me at the minute. But, yes, of course, the overview and scrutiny boards only make recommendations. They don't make policy. They hopefully shape policy. But the bottom line is recommendations are made and they go to Cabinet. And that's where the power of the administration is. It's in the Cabinet. So, I think we need to bear that in mind. Let's everybody join in, everybody make a contribution. Any other political groups make a contribution to review and scrutiny. But at the end of the day, it goes to the Cabinet. They will make the decision. And if it goes further from Cabinet, it goes on to full council for them to make a decision. I see nothing wrong at all in this amendment, and I will support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Any other members feel they... Councillor Rigby, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try and be really, really brief. I like this amendment. I like this amendment because it gives my group, the Bournemouth Independent and Greens, our seat back on the health overview and scrutiny, which would have been lost within the substantive motion. So we're actually getting that representation back. I want to be really clear on this, because tonight a lot of the talk's been about the corporate and community and the place overview and scrutiny. People listening might think that this is something which is meeting every single week, and we're all getting to scrutinise things a lot. Both of those committees actually only have 3 meetings left in the next 11 months before we go back to the ballot boxes. 3 meetings each, and that's 6 items each. It's not a huge ask what the Christchurch Independents have been wanting here, to have some sort of representation, to be able to scrutinise a few items as they go on. And there's been a lot of talk about how we're getting rid of scrutiny, or how we're getting rid of scrutiny, sorry. I'm not getting rid of scrutiny. How scrutiny is being cut down by this administration, which we've got at the moment. And this does open it up that little bit more. And I think to be able to give everyone to have a say on these few items for an additional 6 meetings, it's not a huge ask. So I think it's a good amendment, and I'm definitely going to be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rigby. Any other members wish to contribute? Thank you. So when it comes to Councillor Allison's amendment, Councillor Allison, I give you the opportunity now to sum up. Councillor Miller has already spoken, so after Councillor Allison's summing up, we'll then move to process of voting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for everybody for their contributions. What I wanted to say is that this was supposed to be and is designed to be a genuine somewhere where we can meet in the middle on this topic. As Councillor Rigby said, we've only got 6 more of these scrutiny meetings left. You've all recognised that there's been lots of conversation amongst the public and on the social media about how the scrutiny committees are being attacked and weakened. This is a perfect opportunity. If you get behind this amendment, it's only for the next 11 months until we go to the elections. If you support this, we will have all of the political groups being able to vote for things. And to Councillor Bartlett's last point, the comments of the scrutiny committee are not going to have any impact on your policy anyway, so you have nothing to lose in supporting this amendment. You only have things to gain, and we all only have things to gain by supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. As we've experienced this evening, if there's a desire for a recorded vote on this, could I have a 25% indication that... Thank you. Thank you. So, Chief Executive.
Thank you, Chairman. So, councillors, this is a vote on the amendment as proposed by Councillor Lewis Allison. If you are in favour of the amendment, please vote for. If not, please vote against or abstain. Councillor Lewis Allison.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Mark Anderson.
Against.
Councillor Sarah Anderson. Against. Councillor Marcus Andrews.
For.
Councillor Julie Bagwell.
Against.
Councillor Steve Barron.
As a real poor person, I'm against. Thank you.
Councillor Stephen Bartlett.
For.
Councillor John Beasley. Councillor Derek Borthwick. Councillor Philip Broadhead.
Against.
Councillor Mike Brooke. Councillor David Brown.
For.
Councillor Simon Bull. For. Councillor Richard Burton.
For.
Councillor Diana Butler.
For.
Councillor Daniel Butt.
Against.
Councillor Judy Butt.
Against.
Councillor Eddie Coope. Councillor Malcolm Davies. Councillor Leslie Debman.
For.
Councillor Bobby Dove. Councillor Beverley Dunlop. Councillor Millie Earle.
For.
Councillor Jackie Edwards. Councillor Dwayne Farr.
Against.
Councillor Lawrence Fear.
Against.
Councillor Anne Filer. Councillor David Flagg. Thank you. Councillor May Haynes. Councillor Peter Hall.
Against.
Councillor Paul Hilliard.
For.
Councillor Mark Howell.
For.
Councillor Mohan Iyengar. Councillor Cheryl Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Toby Johnson.
Against.
Councillor Andy Jones. Councillor Jane Kelly. Councillor David Kelsey. Councillor Bob Lawson. Councillor Marion Lepedvin.
For.
Councillor Rachel Maidment. Councillor Simon McCormack.
For.
Councillor Drew Mellor.
Against.
Councillor Pete Miles. Councillor Sandra Moore. Councillor Lisa Northover. Councillor Susan Phillips. Councillor Margaret Phipps. Councillor Karen Rampton. Councillor Vanessa Ricketts. Councillor Chris Rigby.
For.
Councillor Mark Robson. Councillor Roberta Rocco. Councillor Vicky Slade.
For.
Councillor Anne Stribley. Sorry. Councillor Tony Trent.
For.
Councillor Mike White. Councillor Lawrence Williams. Councillor Kieran Wilson. Councillor Tony O'Neill. And Councillor Nigel Hedges.
Against.
Thank you.
Voting was 26 for and 34 against, so the amendment was lost. So we're back to the substantive motion, please. Any further Councillor Brown, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a small point on this substantive. Obviously, and usually this, to get the political balances, involved all the outside bodies as well. And as a member of the Stour Valley Pool Partnership Joint Committee, I am concerned that that's being changed from 2 Conservative members and 2 other members, myself and 1 from Christchurch Independents, to just be 1 out of the 4 BCP members being a Conservative member, and there now being a Labour member proposed there. I just wanted clarification and confirmation that that is in keeping with the Stour Valley Pool Partnership agreement that was agreed as the constitution at the set-up of that body. My understanding is that it should be politically balanced, and I just have a fear that with only 1 out of the 4 Conservative members, it wouldn't be properly politically balanced as an outside body. I can see why it's being done, because obviously it's only 9 months till that body's dissolved, and so the administration seemed to have little interest in it, but I believe it should stay as 2 Conservative members on that and not 1 Conservative and 3 others.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. I'll just try and see, Councillor Brown, if that's something we can check at this point. So the general understanding at this point is that that committee doesn't need a specific political balance, but we need the balance over. Can we just confirm that? Just confirm.
No.
Could you just hold Councillor Brown on that one but it's looking difficult to confirm your fears in that direction. Councillor Allison.
Thank you, Chair. Can I just confirm we're back on the substantive now?
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
Yes.
Sorry.
My colleague, Councillor Farquhar, isn't here, so in his honour, I'm going to do a point of order that the question now be put.
He is forever with us in spirit and beard. So the substantive will now be put to the vote as requested from the floor.
This is a vote on whether the vote be put, so we vote that first, and then we don't vote.
So the first vote, is everybody happy that the vote be put?
Yeah.
So is everybody happy that we move to the vote? Could you please indicate? Agreed, thank you.
So the leader gets a chance to sum up.
Can I call Councillor Drew Mellor to sum up then, please?
Thank you, Chair. I'm more than happy to sum up and that we now get the substantive to the vote. A couple of things I'd like to clarify from the various debates in doing so. We heard that the Conservative group through this process will lose nothing. Well, let's bring some clarity to that. We will lose through this process control of the Planning Committee, Licensing Committee, Audit and Governance Committee, Children's Committee and Investigations and Disciplinary Committee. We heard from Councillor Bartlett that it's apparently appalling that the Christchurch Independents aren't on a place overview and scrutiny committee. Well, there are other, members, in Christchurch. We've got members in our group who are on Christchurch who can sit on that committee. There is at least one. There's one Liberal Democrat member in Christchurch.
Councillor Mellor, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I understand we have a point of order from Councillor.
It's a point of accuracy. The mention was made of the Conservatives having control of Planning Committee. Planning Committee is non-political. Numerically, they may have the biggest number of councillors, but we are non-political and must be seen to be.
Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Provident, and I can completely agree with you. I was talking in terms of numerically, and it does have a count to when things like the chair are committed. So,
thank you, Councillor Peddervin, for that constructive observation. Thank you, Councillor Mellor, for your response. So, may I invite you to continue?
Okay, please do. Thank you very much. So there are various other members, the Liberal Democrat group, Conservative group, so that Christchurch can be on those committees. And if the Christchurch Independents, let's be really clear about this, if the Christchurch Independents want to be on that committee, all they have to do is tell Councillor Slade they want to be on that committee, and you should be able to get it. There are, we've got, there are 102 seats, of which we have.
Councillor Slade, yes.
Sorry, point of clarification. We are not one group. But we are not a group. We are not a group. That is a point of fact, and I think it's an inaccuracy. It can be corrected in the chamber, I believe.
Okay, well that's now on record. Thank you, Councillor Slade. Councillor Mellor.
Thank you very much, and I will go again, Chair. But what you can absolutely do, and what we have said all along, is in your Unity Alliance, you are more than welcome to agree amongst yourselves what seats you would like that you've got left, and you haven't done it. She's not standing, so I'm not. Do you want me to see, Chair?
Councillor Denman.
It just seems, Chairman, that we're covering the old ground instead of speaking to this substantive motion.
This is the summing up, Councillor Denman. This is Councillor Mellor's right to sum up. Thank you. Councillor Mellor, please.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely. In my summing up, I will sum up the debate, and it is a clarity. My position, this group's position, is you have got every opportunity. You are choosing not to be on those committees. You could move your allocation around amongst the Unity Alliance. You're choosing not to. You're choosing not to represent Christchurch on those committees. You're very welcome to change it. We've been consistent throughout. Our position is here. We've got the unaligned, with their two positions as well. You are now welcome to do whatever you want to do. Thank you very much. We've enjoyed this debate, not all of it, and I think some parts of it have been absolutely appalling. And now I wish we go to the vote, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Mellor. So we go to the vote, please. Show of hands for recorded. Those straight to show of hands. Those in favour?
It's being called a sheep by Councillor Howell, and you did say that people should not call out with the deepest of respect.
Councillor Howell, did you use the word sheep? Well, I could. I think bar would not be deemed as offensive at this point, but.
Mr. Chairman, he said the word sheep, then bar. I'm not deaf. Thank you.
So, for clarity, Councillor Howell, could we ask if you use the word sheep? Could we? I'm sorry, Councillor Howell. Councillor Howell, I'm not going to go into a sitting debate with you. If you use the word sheep, well, I'm asking for your honesty, Councillor Howell. Did you use the word sheep? If so, please withdraw it. Councillor Howell, people are watching this. They will judge how people conduct themselves. I'll take no more action at this point. So indicate those against, please. That also goes to the right-hand side of the chamber. No sheep noises, please. I know that sounds funny, but it's not. No sheep. And can I call for abstentions, please? Two. It appears that some members are walking out of the chamber. Can I just say that at this point, as you disappear through the door, I now declare this meeting closed.